Welcome, everyone. If you're joining us here this afternoon, we wanted to let you know you're in the right place with Operation Parent and Carrie Stutzman. We've got a wonderful program set for you this afternoon, and we're going to start bringing folks into the queue. Good afternoon, everyone. Just wanted to thank you for joining us on this beautiful afternoon. Wanted to let you know you're here with Operation Parent as we host a webinar with Carrie Stutzman. Would like to take this opportunity to let you know our next webinar coming up that we'd love for you to register for beginning this evening is on social anxiety, the silent pandemic that needs a louder voice with Kyle Mitchell. That's going to be on Tuesday, May 24th at 1 p.m. So go ahead and mark your calendars. Operation Parent's mission is to love and support parents by providing real-world information, connection, and most importantly, hope. You've joined us this afternoon for Bridge the Gap. How do we keep our kids talking to us? With Carrie Stutzman, parentologist. I want to take a few moments to introduce you guys to our system this afternoon and how you can participate with us. If you wish to view your screen, click on that orange arrow at the top of it and open it all the way up. You're going to view the features with me, and I'm just going to take you through the top features that we're going to use today. We are utilizing the question feature, and I just wanted to let you know that attendees will be muted during the presentation, but we would love to hear from you via the question section. That's about halfway down the control panel. You're going to see that section. You'll be able to send both questions and comments via that light blue panel there. And those questions are going to come privately to us. Wanted to let you know we're going to do our best to answer all of your questions during the presentation. We are super excited about the live Q&A at the end. And the last 30 minutes is what we have planned for a Q&A with Carrie. And so we encourage you, as a question, you have a question that comes to mind during the presentation, feel free to enter that in the question section just as it comes to you anytime. That section is going to be open during the entire presentation, and it's one of our most loved features about our webinar program. So as always, we're looking forward to you utilizing that today. We've got some amazing handouts Carrie has selected for you all today. She put together some of her own material highlighting what we're going to learn together about. That one is titled Bridge the Gap Between Parents and Teens. We also have Daniel Siegel's handout on how changes to the adolescent brain transform peer and parent relationships. And then we also have some tips for communicating with your teen from the Child Mind organization. As you guys know, we reference a lot of their resources. If you haven't checked out the Child Mind org as support in your parenting journey, you may want to check that out at your convenience. That one's titled Tips for Communicating with Your Teen. So you can double click on those handouts here in GoToWebinar. You'll see them right below the question section. You can also double check your email. So just make sure it's the same email that you registered for this webinar with, and you will have downloadable copies of the handouts there as well. We are recording this presentation, and the recording will be sent within 24 hours of the completion of this webinar. So just give us a bit of time to get everything downloaded and get the email back out to you, but you can count on the recording. Also, for our attendees who are here with us live, there will be a certificate of attendance. So that certificate will be attached to the follow-up email that also contains the recording. You can expect that before 48 hours, and also make sure that you've checked your junk folders and things like that if for some reason you're not seeing it right away. But you should have that waiting for you shortly after our presentation. We always utilize a short survey, and that's going to come to you directly as we close the webinar. It will only take you about 2 minutes to complete. I promise you we utilize that. I can see from the attendee list here today that many of you have been with us during our 4 years of building this webinar and Operation Parent community, and you've continued to be very generous with your time and your feedback on that survey, and I promise you we utilize every word of that and look forward to your participation there following the close of the webinar. And also, if you're brand new to us, welcome. We see a lot of new folks here with us today as well, particularly from the Denver area where Carrie is from. So if you're brand new, we're excited to have you here with us today. So now it's my distinct pleasure to introduce you to Carrie. We were given the privilege of getting to know her through Laura Stack, who was a past presenter with us. Her mission is so aligned with our mission, just to help parents and help parents maneuver through any tricky situation, the great situations. It's one of our most important jobs is to be a good parent, and Carrie has a lot of strategies and suggestions for us to help us get through the great spots and the tricky spots of parenting. She has been a great friend to us. We are so excited that we've had an opportunity to get to know her as we work together on this presentation. She has a heart for helping people. She has a heart for helping parents be better parents. Couldn't think of anyone to better align our work with. She also has a giant love for nature, and she uses nature to help people heal and to keep herself strong as she powers through the work and helping people along the way. So I am thankful to know her. I'm thankful that she's going to teach us a lot this afternoon. And Carrie, we're so glad that you've chosen to spend some time with us today.
I'm looking for the spot to turn on the video.
No problem. We'll send you the request again.
There we go.
There we go. Welcome. There she is.
Thank you. Thank you for that really nice introduction.
You bet,
I'm
Carrie.
I'm so excited to be here today. I love the mission of Operation Parent, and I just feel so honored to get to share my thoughts with you today about how to bridge the gap between parents and teens. And today we have parents, people from or drug-free community leaders, people working in youth and family services, in schools, in faith communities. And I don't know, when I saw the list of who's here today from what different groups, I just like feel love and gratitude for the people willing to spend their time, show up for this webinar. I feel for the parents who have kids because it's hard and wonderful, and for all these people who work in the field of helping youth and adolescents. I just like really honor that work that you do. It's important, and I'm grateful that you do it. I call myself a parentologist because I love parents. I love being a parent, and I love helping parents navigate the never-ending staircase of parenting. In my personal life, I've poured myself into parenting. And in my professional life, I specialize in the needs of parents, from helping with parenting skills to managing our own well-being while parenting, to keeping the fire burning in partnerships while we're raising kids, and to creating close, connected families. My official title is Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist. I have a private practice in Denver, Colorado since 2008, and right now I am looking out the window at the Rocky Mountains. My website is carriestutzman.com, and I work with individuals, couples, and families in the state of Colorado. In addition to being a therapist, I have taught parenting classes and done public speaking about parenting topics for the past 22 years while I was raising my 3 boys. And I guess 3 boys weren't enough because 12 years ago, I added 2 stepsons and 1 stepdaughter to the mix. So, yep, that is 5 boys, and they were all teenagers at one time. So I've been there. We're not just talking theory and things I've read in this presentation. My life's work is all about creating close, connected families through parenting skills, self-awareness, and healthy partnerships. And like Michelle mentioned, I'm from Denver, but now that I'm a empty nester, I'm also semi-nomadic, living half-time in an RV, tromping around the country with my husband, and being half-time at home in Denver. COVID forced my work as a marriage and family therapist and parenting instructor online, just as we were closing in on being empty nesters. So after 26 years of defining myself first as a mom, focusing on being dependable, responsible, and home-based, I shuffled the deck a little and let my adventure girl and nature girl be brought back to life. And the good news is she was still there. She hadn't completely been snuffed out during all those years of being mom and responsible and dependable. When my kids were little, I wrote a book called Sanity Savers, Creating Bubbles of Calm in the Chaos of Parenting Young Children. And I was going to publish it then. And then I got so busy raising kids and going back to work that I haven't been able to publish it until during lockdown in 2020. It's short and sweet because I think it's immoral to give a mother of young children a long parenting book to read. It's full of quick, doable little strategies to help moms maintain some grace and calm and sense of humor during the intensity of the first 5 or so years of raising children. So at the end of this webinar, we're going to be giving away 3 copies, and you can find it on Amazon in paperback and Kindle by just typing in my name, Carrie Stutzman, and we're giving those 3 copies away at the end. So I know that this book targets or is more written for parents of young children. And I have such a heart for parents of teenagers because that's the season I'm just still in and starting to come out of. So our learning objectives for today's webinar are to learn what teens and tweens wish their parents knew, to increase openness and communication with our children, to identify the price that we as parents pay for 3 common parenting strategies that don't serve us, and to provide steps for creating a close, connected family. So, what if we didn't have to worry about our kids when they're teenagers? Wouldn't that be nice? But let's be real. We have good reason to worry about them. Some kids we worry about because they are sad or anxious or struggling, or life has handed them challenges that we would never wish on them. And then in some cases, like at least one of my teenagers, we worry about them because they can be idiots. I mean, when a group of teenage boys comes home late at night and one kid's eyes are horrifically red and swollen because he had been throwing fireworks out the car window while moving, I think that's pretty reasonable to worry about his judgment. It's like spitting in the wind, but with fireworks. Lesson learned, I hope. And how do parents not worry when they pull up to their house and see a whole team of firefighters gathered around their son and his friend? A son and a friend who were bored, so they decided to entertain themselves by taking a pile of beach towels, a can of gasoline, and a lighter, and seeing what happens when you put all 3 together. I hate to admit this, but I have so many real life stories like those 2 about just one of my 5 teenage sons. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. That is the kid who is now 24 and a youth coach. And oof, was he ever tough to parent. It was scary letting him be in charge of his own life. In the resources you'll get, there's a, um, from this webinar, there's a story from the national news about raising him and how it has turned out. So if you're in the trenches with a tough teen, it might give you a little hope to read it. Palmer right now is headed to grad school for his master's in marriage and family therapy, and he's currently working as a success coach with teen boys who need support with life skills, study skills, social skills, and reaching their goals. Who would have thunk it? My husband and I so many times are like, we never could have imagined the outcome for him would have been this great. He has a website called ownyourownjourneycoaching.com, and you can also find him on my website if you want to learn more about him. And if you think your kid might benefit from coaching, Palmer's happy to jump on a call and chat to see if that's the right fit. So he's at ownyourownjourneycoaching.com. So while we have many reasons to worry about our teens and reasons that we want to keep them talking to us, hold on. So while we have many reasons to, we have many reasons to worry about our teens. And we have reasons that we want to keep them talking to us because we want to make sure they are okay, because we're terrified that maybe they're not. So if we were all in a room together right now, I would ask you to raise your hands to the following questions. I'd have you stand up and raise your hands. But we're not, we're in a virtual room. So instead, will you please fill out the poll, or please fill in the poll that pops up, and you can answer yes to any and all that apply. So one is, if you have a tween or teen, raise your hand or select the box. If you love a tween or teen that's not your own, if you love or have a kid who will one day be a tween or teen, if you worry about your kid or kids, and if you're sometimes uncomfortable or uncertain living with them and parenting them, please just click and fill them all in. Worrying about our kids is heavy. It's scary because the stakes are high. It's sad. And as parents, we worry about them no matter how well they're doing. When one of my sons was a senior in high school and I was talking to other moms, I marveled that no matter how wayward or how crazy successful a kid was, they all had moms who were worrying about them for different reasons.
Hey everybody, this is Nikki. I'm just coming on to read you all the poll results. Almost everybody participated, so thank you all for making this an active, engaging presentation. I'm going to go ahead and close those results and share them with you all so we can all see them together. It looks like 62% of us have a teen or tween. 47% love a tween or teen that's not our own. 52% of us have or love a kid who will one day be a tween or teen. 78% of us worry about our kids, and 60% of us are sometimes uncertain living and parenting with them. Thanks, Carrie. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Nikki. So look around this virtual room where you can't see people, but it is chock full of people, and they're your new best friends. They are we who are uncomfortable and uncertain. I just think it's so important to make sure that everybody knows that we are not alone in worrying about our kids. So thank you for participating in that. 78% of parents are worrying about their kids, and 60% are uncertain sometimes. So thank you for sharing that and helping everybody else who's in it feel normal. And there's so much pressure to look like we've got it together and like our kids have got it together. But let's be honest, we don't. We don't got it together. We never really did, but we especially don't after the impact of COVID on our lives and on our kids' lives. And we all want connection with our kids, right? We love them so much, but it can be hard. And at some phase of raising kids, we get this.
Young man, get up! We're gonna be late for school, now!
Yes, I'm up! I'm up!
Come on, now!
I'm getting up!
We're leaving.
I'll be down in 5 minutes!
Nope, we're leaving now! Come, get up! Now!
I'm coming!
Hello, how was your day?
Fine.
How was practice?
Fine.
And how are all your classes?
Good.
Do you have any homework?
I guess.
Do you or not?
I don't know.
Anything fun happened today, or
I
anything
guess.
you wanna tell me?
I don't know. How many questions are you gonna ask me?
Young man, hey, watch it.
Can we go to McDonald's?
No, we have food at home.
Oh, the food at home sucks.
No, it doesn't. Okay?
Why can't we ever go?
We don't need to spend that money.
Ugh.
Did you talk to any girls today?
I don't know.
What about that girl, Katie?
Stop.
Did you?
Mom, stop.
Did you finish your homework?
I don't know.
Did you finish your homework?
I did most of it.
You'll go finish your homework right now. Go.
You'll finish your homework.
Excuse me?
Nothing.
Do you want me to tell your father what you just said to
No.
me?
Okay, I'm sorry. I take it back. I'm sorry.
What do you want for dinner?
Mm.
Okay, I'll make spaghetti.
I don't want spaghetti.
Well, then what do you want?
I don't know.
What?
I don't know. I don't care.
I'm making spaghetti then.
No, I don't want that.
Dinner's ready. Come on, let's go.
Okay, I'm coming.
It's ready right now. Come on.
I said I'm coming. I'm coming.
Right now.
Can I have 5 minutes?
I'll give you the count of 3.
I'm coming in 5 minutes.
1,
Mom.
2. You're gonna make me say 3?
Okay. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. I don't know how that guy got his surveillance equipment installed in my house, in my car, but he did a very good job of sneaking it in. I'm just grateful that he didn't use actual footage with my voice on it. So we love them like crazy, and they drive us crazy, right? Like the floppy body and the mom stop I lived in that phase for a very long time. So how do we stay connected and keep them talking to us so that we know if they are okay? I found 2 studies that I thought were really interesting. One was a Yale study that says that parent-teen conflicts are less troublesome when teens feel loved. Researchers found that teens reported feeling more loved on days when parents reported showing more warmth in the form of affection, understanding, and praise. And teens reported feeling less loved on days when parents reported more conflict than usual. There's a quote that said, "Parents often stress about the conflicts they're experiencing with their children, but the study suggests that conflicts are manageable as long as children experience warmth from their parents at some point during the day." I love that. It means we don't have to have a perfect relationship, that it's not horrible if there is some conflict sometimes, as long as we show love and affection every day. And then another piece that I wanted to share with you, some research by Dr. Dan Siegel about the essence of adolescence. And I love his book called Brainstorm. It's one of my favorites about adolescence. It's super science-based about what is going on in the adolescent brain. And reading it really helps understand and have compassion and respect for the teenage brain. And he writes about how the teenage brain is so on fire and engaged with life, and that we should honor their brains. And he asks, why should this matter to us, whether we're teens, in our 20s, or older? It matters because if we see the adolescent period as just a time to wade through, a time to endure, we'll miss out on taking very important steps to optimize the essence of adolescence. He describes 4 vital features of adolescence that we can all cultivate, that's good for all of us. One is emotional spark. So the downside of this is the emotional storms and moodiness of teens. And there was research done where they showed like neutral faces of adults and to teens. And teens perceived so many of those faces as angry and charged way more than adults do. So they look at us and they see more charge than we might be feeling in it, or than we might be feeling in that moment. So that's the downside. If you were all in the same room, I'd be like, raise your hand if you've experienced emotional storms and moodiness from a tween or teen. The upside, however, is a powerful passion to live life fully and to capture life being on fire. That word fire reminds me of Palmer and the firefighters, and that's not the kind that is being talked about right now. Number two, another piece of the essence of adolescence is novelty seeking. So the downside of that is risk-taking behavior and injury. But the upside is if when they're in that mode of risk-taking, then or of novelty seeking, that helps them have the courage to leave the familiar, certain, and safe home nest for the unfamiliar, uncertain, potentially unsafe world beyond. So it's an important stage of them getting ready to launch into the adult world. The third one is social engagement. The downside is falling prey to peer pressure simply to gain membership in a group. And a downside for me as a mom that I experienced was just kind of missing being that soul, like that, the center of their world and one whose opinion mattered so much. So it's painful. But the upside is the central importance of supportive relationships that they're developing in their lives. They're finding their own way socially. And then the last one is creative exploration. The downside of that is they're not just conforming to life as usual, and that can be disorienting and stressful for them and for us as parents. But the upside is the thrill and passion of discovery and innovation. And when they have that without a whole lot of judgment, that's the scary part. But their brains do finish forming and judgment does often come. So while they may be maddening to parent, this stage is important and it has something to teach us about living fully alive. So how do we get our kids talking to us? We have to train them. We have to train them that we are safe to talk to. So if you're multitasking, I hope you come back because I really hope you hear this. If we want our kids to talk to us when they are tweens and teens, we have to train them that we will listen. It doesn't come naturally, and I'm not saying it's easy, especially given that teens are often prone to turn to their peers instead of us. And I like this comic about being based on my life. And it says, based on my lack of life experience, I will always follow your advice, said no teenager to their parent ever. So given that, to do this, we have to train our kids that when they mess up, they can come to us and feel heard and safe, and that we will bring our adult selves to this party. And that's a big ask. I didn't expect that as a mom because I figured that people who were parents of teens were grown-ups and they acted like adults, and I didn't always feel that way. Still don't. So this next comic about welcome to being a parent of a teenager. Prepare for a large amount of eye rolling, emotional outbursts, and thoughts of running away. And that's just the parents. So this is a place, this webinar, where we can just be real about what it's like to parent teens and how our own teenage self can pop up to the surface. So now I'm going to share a personal parenting story about the 3 default parenting styles and the price that we pay for them. Then I'm going to share ideas for updating our parenting operating system so that we parent in ways that foster strong relationships with our kids. So here is my true story. So Palmer was 16, had just gotten his license, so I was super excited because now I had a driving helper. And so he was going to pick up Landon from engineering class after school while I was teaching a parenting class. So I came home that night. It was late. I was tired. It had been a long day of work. And I go downstairs and I see my boys, Palmer and Landon, ask them how their day is. And within a few minutes, Palmer admits that he had gotten pulled over and gotten a speeding ticket. He was driving on a road, on a street, a city street that has like houses and neighborhoods on it that has a speed limit of 45. He was going 90 miles an hour. That's my kid. So he showed me a video that he had recorded. So while he was waiting for the police officer to walk up to the car, you know, they pull you over and they sit back there and do what they do, and then they walk up. He pulled up his phone to post it like on Snapchat or something. So he's sitting there going like, oh my gosh, I got pulled over. I'm going to get a ticket, or I'm getting a ticket. I'm so dead, all that kind of thing. So I'm standing there thinking, you went how fast on that street? And I realized, here I am. I'm in a pop quiz. I didn't see that coming, but I am in a pop quiz about how to respond when it's late and I'm tired and I'm just told that my kid did this massive mess up. So I'm like, okay, how do I respond? Well, option number one is I could yell. And I think this is how I look when I'm yelling at my kids. Seriously. And yelling seemed like a viable option because it's easy. It's easy for us as parents, right? Like we can let angry words squirt out of our mouths. I so easily could have found lots of words to squirt out of my mouth at that point. When we yell, we don't have to exercise restraint. Sort of nice. We can focus on our upset and our fear for our kids' well-being. But yelling is disconnecting. And when we yell at our kids for their mistakes, we are training them that their mistakes make us mad. So then when they're depressed or self-harming or anxious or addicted or feeling suicidal, you name it, are they really going to feel comfortable sharing their struggles with us if we've trained them that their mistakes make us mad? Okay, so option number two. So I'm not going to do the yelling. Option number two, I could punish. Oh, punishing would be so satisfying because flinging out a punishment can feel satisfying because our kids' bad decisions are terrifying for us. And punishments give us a sense of revenge. Our kids made us suffer by scaring us, so then we get to make them suffer back. And we think that that's how they're going to learn. But what we really want for our kids is to help them learn. Punishments are usually designed for suffering, not for learning. And punishments dished out when we're angry not only are disconnecting, but they fan the flame of rebellion inside of our teens. Option number two, off the table. Okay, I'm still in this pop quiz. My first two choices I'm not going to go with. So option number three, is this going to be a good one? Option number three is to lecture. When I lecture, I get to feel smart. I get to bestow my wisdom upon him. And we have the illusion that we're bestowing our wisdom on them, and that feels better than our fear and heartbreak about the safety and well-being of our beloved children. Because imagine how terrifying it was to hear that my son with my younger son was going 90 miles an hour on a 45 mile, anywhere, period, anywhere, within like a month or two of having his driver's license. I was terrified. So the lecturing would feel better than facing my fear and heartbreak about their safety. But teaching by talking, especially in the heat of the moment, it sounds like lecturing to our kids and they tune us out. And once again, we end up feeling disconnected. So those three responses are default. They're familiar. Most of us were raised with some or all of those, but they're old school. It's time for a new operating system on our parenting. Kids develop and start leaning into more independence, and we have to adapt. We can't force our way into the inner workings of our kids' minds. If our older kids let us into their world, it's a gift. It is not an entitlement. And as they get older, the price tags of their mistakes go up. Like when they're little, if they mess up, the price tag of their mistake might be they lose a play date, or they don't get that second cookie, or they don't get to watch a show. But as they get big, the price tags of their mistakes can be addictions, pregnancy, not having as good of options for college, suicide risk. The price tag can be life-threatening, life-ending, life-changing. So this means that it's even more important to teach them that they can trust us when they mess up. So all three of those previous options are disconnecting and teaching our kids that when they mess up, we're going to yell, punish, or lecture. So raise your hand in this virtual room if when you mess up, when you do something dumb and you tell someone that what you're looking for is a friend who will yell at you, punish you, or lecture you. If you were in person, I wouldn't see anybody raising their hand because that's not what we want when we mess up, right? So I'm still in my pop quiz. I'm like, option number 4 is lead with empathy. Empathy means connection. Empathy is where we feel the discomfort with our loved ones. It's where we don't judge or pity them or pat them on the head, but rather we feel it and we see it through their lens. And we're compassionate. We lean into their pain. So back to Palmer and my pop quiz. I decide to practice empathy. I mean, I was just home from teaching a parenting class. I couldn't be quite such a hypocrite as to come home and yell at my kid that soon after teaching. So I said, I'm so glad you're safe. It scares me to think about what could have happened to you. Wow, that's going to be a big ticket. How much is it going to cost? He's like, It's like, well, when is court? That's all he had to say. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, I just lost my driver. Inside, I'm losing my mind. But on the outside, I'm determined to train him that no matter what, I love him. And I don't even need to come up with a consequence because the legal system is going to have that covered and the car insurance is going to have that covered. So I was like, well, I'll go to court with you. Can you show me the ticket so I can see when the court date is? I'll put it on my calendar. So he goes padding up the stairs and out the door to his car, and he comes back down and hands me a yellow piece of paper. And sadly, I do know very well that tickets tend to come on a piece of yellow paper, but this piece of paper looked a little bit different. And so I opened it. It was just like a regular piece of paper. So I opened it up and what it said on it in Palmer's handwriting said, pranked ya. Here's what I was hearing and seeing in my head.
This is a test. This station is conducting a test of the emergency broadcasting system. This is only a test.
This was just a test. He had pulled over in front of a police car with flashing lights and just like captured that little video as a prank. Like as he was driving past and saw a cop car sitting there on the street, he had this idea, I'm gonna prank my mom, and he made that video. Imagine what a jerk I would have been if I had yelled, punished, or lectured for this pop quiz. Truth be told, I've gotten C's and D's on plenty of my parenting pop quizzes, but this time I passed. I showed him that messing up big time didn't make me mad at him, and it didn't cause us to disconnect. But it so reminded me that we have pop quizzes coming at us all the time because our kids are watching. They want to know how we're going to respond. So what are the skills to keep from disconnecting with our kids with yelling, punishing, or lecturing? What skills can we consciously practice to up the odds of keeping open communication with our kids. This webinar is all about staying connected. If you're interested in attending a separate training on what to do when you don't know what to do, like if Palmer's ticket had been real, that's more of a consequence sort of conversation, then please shoot me an email at Carrie@CarrieStutzman and let me know. And feel free to tell me what scenarios you'd like me to address, and I will put that together to speak specifically to your questions. So the skill to use is listen more, lecture less. Easy to say, harder to do. Remember that this is a season for training them, that they can bring us their mistakes and their struggles, and that they can trust us to stay connected and keep loving them. So on the note of listen more, lecture less, I want to tell you about a research project that I did the summer before COVID, also known as 2019. I was really disturbed when I heard that Colorado's teen suicide rate had increased 58% between 2016 and 2019. And in the US, in the whole US, youth suicide was up 25% from 2016 to 19. And statistics show it's a global problem as well. And then I heard this heartbreaking statistic that 40% of youth suicides followed intense conflict with parents. Think about that. 40% of the youth suicides came after some sort of intense conflict with parents. And the thought of youth suicide is frightening enough to parents. But to imagine the pain of having had an intense conflict with our child before that, I couldn't drop that. And it left me trying to figure out, what can parents do to help keep our kids safe and alive? As a parent, I wasn't sure what I could do. I had attended all the presentations that were available through the schools and wherever I could find them, but I still wasn't sure what I could do. I think a lot of us are hoping that the schools will have programs that will help keep our kids safe, and they do, or their therapists, and they do too, but that someone will help keep our kids safe. But still, the question gnawed away at me: what can parents do to help prevent youth suicide? And that question just grabbed onto me and wouldn't leave me alone. So I decided, I raised some funds and I gathered a team of high school and college students, and we decided the way to find out was to listen to the youth. So we went out and interviewed teens, parents, and mental health professionals. And this is what we heard. We heard that most parents, youth, and professionals, like 86% across the board, believe that family is a part of the problem, that family dynamics contribute to suicide. Number two, we learned that youth want their parents to listen. 1 in 4 youth said that quality time spent together and being listened to are what helps them feel close to their parents. And so when we asked them what helps them feel closer to their parents, this is what they said. They said how much time they take to listen, the time we spend together, and what we both put into our relationship. It's interesting hearing kids like really take some ownership for their part in this relationship. They also said that what helps them feel closer to their parents is how often we talk and how deep the conversations are, and how much time I spend with both of them. Number 3 thing that we learned from this study was that youth want to feel accepted and understood. They said that parents who want to be closer to their kids can show their unconditional support and love. Don't set a cookie cutter standard, and instead let the kids grow into themselves. They do not like feeling like they're a project of ours. They can be intentional in getting to know their children. And I know that seems funny, right? Because we have known these children more than they've known themselves when they were little. But as they get into their tween and teen years, they want us to be curious about who they are as their own individual emerging adults. And they want us to try to see things from the kids' perspective. So then we asked the kids my favorite question, which was, what do you wish your parents knew? And the results of that research project were interesting enough that I was selected to present the study to the International Family Therapy Association in Switzerland in late March of 2020. But yeah, COVID. So in the discussions with my team, I heard young people describing still feeling little inside and wanting their parents to still be home base where they could be comforted, even though to parents, they didn't appear to be open to that at all. So the team and I put together a video showing kids, they're actor kids, but showing kids saying the most common responses that we got from the teens that we surveyed. And you can go onto my website at carriestutzman.com if you want to watch this again and learn a little bit more about this piece of research. But for right now, we're going to show it to you.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew how difficult some of my relationship struggles have been, and that rather than someone else telling me what to do, I just need them to listen.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew I didn't want to tell them about every second of my day. It really isn't that important.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew that I feel like our family could be closer.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew I want to hear more about their lives.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew that I'm struggling with depression a lot more than they think.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew that I love them regardless of any problems we have.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew I was my own person, not just a project of theirs.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew my personal thoughts and struggles.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew that I just want them to be proud of me.
I wish my parents knew.
I wish my parents knew I want to be closer to them, even though I don't really act like it.
I wish my parents knew.
So what can we do? There's no one quick fix for parenting, for preventing youth suicide, because there are so many factors that play a part in kids ending up in that tragic place. My focus for today is on one little slice of that pie, which is helping parents have good relationships with their teens. My suggestion is to learn how to really listen and hear them using the acronym HEAR, H-E-A-R. So in the acronym HEAR, the first letter is H, which is to honor that they are their own people. They have their own purpose. With my kids, I've wanted to scope them, and they would say things that drove me nuts, like college is stupid, marriage is pointless. It bugged me what they would eat, so many things. But now in their late 20s in their early 20s and late teens, one's married, one's engaged, they've all done college, they all eat healthy food and have reasonable hygiene habits, and they're living as grown-ups. And Palmer, my dentist the menace, turned out to be a lovely young man. He's better than if I had been able to sculpt him into who I thought I wanted him to be. I never in a million years thought that he would end up being a life coach for teenage boys. So if you read the blog post and watch the conversation that we have in one of the blogs that I listed at the end called "If You're Raising That Kid, Don't Give Up," I hope you remember that he hated me when he was 15. The link to that article and video is on the resources slide at the end of this presentation. So remember, these tweens and teens, they're not done yet. So this is a little video that I just love. It's from a National Geographic documentary called One Strange Rock, narrated by Will Smith. And the woman who's talking in this little clip she was an Iowa farm girl who ended up being an astronaut who spent like more time in space than any other astronaut. So she's amazing. And I would ask that as you listen to this video, you listen as though she's talking about your child, especially that part about the goo and the butterfly.
It's always interesting to see the caterpillars crawling around and recognize that someday that's going to become a butterfly.
You like to move around a lot, don't you?
We all know that caterpillars turn into butterflies. But does it make it any less wondrous? It's as extraordinary as a farm girl from Iowa transforming into an astronaut. The monarch butterfly's caterpillar is nature's shapeshifter supreme.
When the caterpillar is inside the chrysalis, it dissolves. Then it turns into goo. And then the goo turns into a butterfly.
Caterpillars don't know much of the world beyond a milkweed plant. But once a butterfly, it's cleared for takeoff. And from up high, it gains a new perspective on the world.
So the first H in here is to honor that they are in the middle of a massive metamorphosis in their life from child to adult. The next letter in the acronym here is on how to listen is empathy. Empathy means to pause, take a breath, go slow. And if we find ourselves talking, to stop and ask ourselves, wait, which is why am I talking? Because sometimes we parents end up talking because we're trying to teach by lecturing. We have strong emotions. We feel out of control and we just keep talking. But if we can ask, why am I talking? To see, is it to connect with our kid? Is it to help them feel heard and seen and understood? And if so, continue. And if not, if it's for our own needs, then it might be helpful to stop talking and let the kids talk. Another piece of empathy is to connect before correct. And it's easier to do that if we slow down and if we see it through their lens. If we think about the essence of adolescence, if we get in it with them and recognize their emotion and name it for them. Empathy is better done if we can calm our mind. And sometimes it helps me to go, Carrie, you can always yell, punish, or lecture later, just not right now. Connect before correct. If you want them to learn to trust you with their hard times, we all have to show them that we are here for them, like a dearest friend during the hard times. And Brene Brown on YouTube has a great little video on empathy versus sympathy that I think is worth the 3 minutes that it takes to watch it. So you can just go to YouTube and type in Brene Brown, empathy versus sympathy. And she talks about how to do that. The next step in how to listen is to be available. We can't force our kids to talk to us. So if they do, it's good to listen. Now I know little kids, sometimes we can't get them to stop talking. Big ones, not so much, at least not for a lot of them. And when they do decide to talk, they don't usually pick the best time for us. So a few things to keep in mind about being available is phones down, eyes up, and be interested in their world. If they're talking, if it's an open moment, phones down, eyes up especially, and be interested in their world. Invite and expect rejection. You can, with Palmer, during that phase where he hated me, I just couldn't get him to spend time with me or talk to me, and we were so disconnected. And so I would start asking him if he wanted to like run to Starbucks or go get lunch, just to send the message of, I love you and I want to be with you. And in the beginning, he would say no all the time, and I would get my panties in a bunch and feel all rejected until I learned to invite and expect the rejection, but see it just as me sending the message of I love you and I want to spend time with you. And when he could say no without me getting all adolescent-y myself, then I was sending the message of you're always free to say yes, and you can step out on your own terms. So then there's some choice about whether or not he spends time with me. And when I would get my panties in a bunch, I would have this horrible feeling of feeling like a teenager in myself, like being huffy because I had invited him to do something and he was saying no. And then I'd be like, Carrie, someone has to be the grown-up in this room. And there are only two of you, you and this 15-year-old boy. So the adult has to be you. And that was a huge realization for me, like honestly, to just be like, I have to be a grown-up and not my teenage self. Timing is everything about when we ask. And like with Palmer, during that really disconnected phase, since I couldn't force him to talk to me, I just had to learn to wait until he was available. And every night I would often work by the front of our house. So when he came in from school, I would be there, like just looking available. And most of the times he would just walk past me, but every now and then he'd plop on the couch and just lay there. And then I'd be like, I think there's an open moment. And I had to go slow because there was a part of me that was like, oh, it's an open moment. I want to ask him 100 different questions. I want to know about this. I want to know about that. I want to bring up this. I want to bring up that. I want to be like a mom with 1,000 words. And that would make him shut down like an anemone, right? You know how if you touch an anemone, it goes, it would do that. Or he would do that. And he would be up and walking out so fast. So I had to wait and be patient until there was a moment or an opening, and then I had to not dive in too hard or too fast, but act relaxed and act interested and let him have his own pace. And maybe ask, what do you wish I knew? And then not take it personally if he says nothing with an attitude. One other little piece about being available that I would love to suggest is to make a commitment to yourself that when you walk in the door, or when they do, your kids, that you will say nothing critical or suggestive in the first 15 minutes. That in those first 15 minutes, you will carve out that time to look them in their eyes, smile, and be nurturing, and just be interested without being interrogating, but be present. It helps train them that they can relax in your presence. And I had to learn that the hard way because I used to walk in and see my kids and instantly I saw their mess, their homework, the dishes, and I started commenting about that, which was teaching them, oh, when mom comes, we better brace. And later I found out that is what they were doing. So first moments, only about connecting and eye contact and a smile. It sends the message I want to know you. It's worth so much to our kids if we send the message, I'm curious about knowing who you are as your own individual person. And then the last step in this here is remember. Remember what it was like to be a teen. Remember what you longed for as a teen. Remember what kind of parent you want your kids to have. And will you please chat in the chat function, not in the Q&A, but in the chat part, what kind of parent you want your kids to have. Let's make this interactive and have a conversation. And remember to model being the kind of person that you want your child to become. So I'll keep going, and as you see chats come across, just look and just take your own moment to think about what kind of parent do you want your kids to have. So I hope you remember that this acronym here, HEAR, is all about how you can take responsibility for doing your part to keep the doors of communication open so that your teen dares to let you into their world without fear of being judged, shamed, or blamed. So I'd like to wrap up with a little more interaction with you. So if you can get into the chat, fingers on the keyboard, I would love that. So as a parent who's a couples, individual, and family therapist, I have become convinced that to listen, to really listen, is a gift. Why? Because we all long to be heard and seen. If our teens share with us, it's a gift. We have to be brave to hear it. It might trigger us. It might touch into our worst fears. And if they don't share it, we can't help them through it. So right now, if we were all in a room together, we would I would have you all stand up and do this Q&A. And what I would ask you to be saying is, bring it. So I'm going to ask you some questions. And what I really ask you to do is type the words in, bring it, after each question or each comment. And also, if you can, out loud, just say it out loud so that you leave this webinar with this sense of courage that for your kids and the kids you work with, that you can take it, that they can bring anything they want to you, and that you're like, bring it, I can handle it, right? So do you want to hear what your kids have to say? Type into the chat, bring it. Do you want to hear, do you really want to hear what your kids have to say? Bring it.
Hey, Carrie. I'm
Yes.
sorry. Let's have people enter it into the question section. I'm not seeing anything pop into the chat.
Okay.
Unless Nikki is. Nikki, are you seeing anything? No problem. Let's route people to the question feature, which we know is working.
Okay, great. So you got that? We're going to the question section instead.
Thanks, Carrie. Sorry about that.
No, that's good. Thanks, Michelle. Can you handle it? Bring it. You might not like what they have to say. Now say it out loud. Bring it. What they say might make you uncomfortable. Bring it. They might talk about being anxious or depressed. Bring it. They might talk about behaviors that could be addictive or dangerous. Can you handle it? Bring it. I want you to feel that sense of bring it. I can take it. They might talk about sex. They might talk about abuse. They might talk about how annoying you are. Heaven knows my kids did. They might think they know it all when you know that they are young and inexperienced. Bring it. They might talk about suicide or self-harm. Oh, please, bring it. They might talk about things you wish you didn't know. Yes, please bring it. And now if the chat or the question is working, I'd love to have you type into the chat what you're going to do differently today. What's your takeaway from this webinar?
There are so many bring it's. I can't even keep up with all of them.
Really? Oh, I
So
can't see
many.
it. That's
Yes.
awesome.
And one
Yay.
of our participants also, I'm scrolling way back up, says they want to be the dad that I wish I had.
Beautiful.
Bring it, bring it, bring it.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, and so what we found is people weren't seeing the icon for the chat feature, so we'll fix that next time we use it to make sure it you can see it. And then here we come. So good. I want my kids to be able to talk to me about anything. I want my kids to have a fun parent who loves them unconditionally. I want to be present and active.
Love it.
Oh my gosh, I will not criticize for the first 15 minutes, no matter how tempted I am.
And now what I would suggest is make that commitment out loud to a friend or your partner or somebody and have them hold you accountable so that after like a week, you're going to check, or even after the end of each day, you're going to check in and be like, I did it today.
Oh, I love this. Lead with empathy.
Love that.
Oh, gosh. There's so many, it's really hard to get to them all. Less lecturing, more listening. Listen first.
Yay.
Talk less. Listen, 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 listen more readily. Listen with open arms. Listen more, talk less, but it's hard. Listen to my son when I pick him up from school. Don't start with questions. Oh man, this is great. Lots of kind, genuine empathy without lecturing. Loving and supportive. Lots of kind, genuine empathy. You all are speaking my love language. Oh, my daughter is younger, but I will put the phone down and look at her. Okay, a couple more. Listen, lots of support. My daughter, okay, I have a couple questions that I've got lined up for you too. I think that was amazing. Thank you all so much for being flexible in where you put your responses, but participating.
Love it. Thank you. And I'm glad that took a minute because as you were reading those, like I had tears to think of all these kids who have parents who are making this commitment and saying they're going to work on listening and on connecting and on empathy. Like, it's just touches me. And I want you to remember that you don't have to know what to say about everything they tell you. It's okay. If you want them to talk to you, if you want to know what's going on in their worlds, you just have to be able to tolerate hearing what they have to say. You don't need to have answers. So if we want to know what's going on in our kids' inner world, we have to train them that we can handle it. We have to prove that we will honor them as emerging adults. We have to prove that we will be empathetic with their struggles. They're not doing what they do to bug us or to hurt our feelings or to make us feel incompetent. And they want us to want them, even when they don't act like they don't want us. And we have to remember and honor what it's like to be a teen. Our teens are doing what it takes to morph from a child into an adult. And it's hard. Their brains and bodies are transforming. Don't hold it against them if they are goofy tweens and teens. They don't feel goofy. We don't roll our eyes at the caterpillar for how awkward it is as it transforms into goo before it becomes a beautiful butterfly. That's just the necessary process. So I hope you will hear them. Honor, empathy, available, and remember. Be curious about what it's like to be them and listen for real. So thank you for listening to that. Now let's move forward to how can the community and schools help? I have 6 things that I think schools and communities can do to help that came out of that research project that I did. The first is to think about the whole family system rather than just the individual youth, to really think about the whole system, to think about and offer more parent training. I meet so many well-intentioned, loving parents who just don't know what to do. And since most of us were raised with the default of yell, lecture, or punish, they're using that. They're so open to new skills, but sometimes it's hard to find that for parents of teens especially. Family therapy. For mental health professionals, that came out as such a strong one, but also for the schools or anybody working with kids who are struggling, to think about that kid as a part of a system of the whole family. And sometimes they're just the ones exhibiting the pain for the family, but the problem is likely somewhere bigger than in just the kid. Parent-teen workshops and programs. Oh my gosh, if I could wave a magic wand and have something like spread throughout the country and the world, it would be more parent-teen workshops and programs. My son Palmer and I are actually so passionate about that we're working on creating a talk for parents and teens about how to connect. And maybe we will also expand that into some workshops that parents can take in person with their teens, because it can be really connecting. But even for, for community, people in the community, just to think about how can we get parents and teens talking to each other. It's good for kids' mental health. More research. Number 5 is more research in a broader community. The research that I did was tiny. I'm not a researcher. I didn't have much funding, and I didn't have very much access to a lot of diversity in the kids that we interviewed. So it would be so awesome to have this research be done way bigger, or to share other similar research that has been done. And number 6 is to let the youth know that they can be a part of the solution. In all the discussions that I had right here in this office with the team, the kids were like, oh, wow, like we have a say in this. We could make a difference in how the relationship is with our parents. And they hadn't realized that until we were having some of these conversations. So how can we help? I have we as like parents, a communication tip is to be brave and ask, right? But now you've got the bring it. So you have the courage to be brave and to ask. Listen for real. For your own family, if you're watching this as a parent, consider family therapy. Consider taking a parent-teen workshop. There is one out there called Hold Me Tight, Let Me Go, developed by Sue Johnson on her model, and it's beautiful. It's the one that I will take to public if I go in that direction. Hold me tight, let me go. And then another piece that you can do as a parent is do your own work. If you have anger or insecurities that are getting in the way of showing up as the parent you want your kids to have, so often parenting is an invitation to us to do our own work so that we can be the parent we want our kids to have. And then we have a list of some resources. Like I mentioned before, I love Dan Siegel's book, Brainstorm, The Power and Purpose of the Teenage Brain. I love Gary Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages of Teenagers, The Secret to Loving Teens Effectively. There's some national resources that are really helpful, that have great information and good articles. Dr. Dan Siegel.com, thegurieninstitute.com, and childmind.org, in addition to Operation Parent. There are a few blogs of mine that might be helpful. One is called If You're Raising That Kid, Hang in There. One is called Please Take Good Care of My Boy, and one is Parenting Teens is Challenging. Like, not to overstate the obvious, but there's more to that blog. And then in the operation, oh, one correction, on the bottom of that slide, it says youth coaching, misspelled. It's also the wrong website. So my son's website is Own Your Own Journey, or ownyourjourneycoaching.com. And then in the Operation Parent Handbook, I love all the resources. I was looking through the version that's for teens, and page 13 has some great conversation starters with your teen. Page 14 and 15 are about youth suicide. And then there's page 8 has tips for effective communication with your teen. It's good stuff. Oh, and page 47 to 48 are about youth suicide. I misstated about what 14 and 15 are about, but it's a great resource. It's so short and easy to read. It's visually interesting. If you don't have it, I recommend it. And then I'm going to give you 7 quick reasons to check out my website at carriestutzman.com. One is a 1-question survey where you can share what resonated with you from today's webinar. And if you answer the survey and would like to meet and chat, I'm going to schedule some 10-minute meet and greet calls for the first 25 people who share, just to hear what your takeaway was or to learn a little bit about you. Number 2, moms pour themselves and so much love into their children and families, and it can be lonely and challenging, even for moms who are surrounded by friends. So I'm opening a moms group where moms can come to feel seen and honored and heard and celebrated. It's a place where moms can learn by taking classes. They can drop in, they can share a little, do a little emotional housekeeping, and be real about the surprises and challenges of mothering. There will be live events, interviews with other experts, parenting pods, group coaching, and more, and we will create this together. After all my years of mothering, I just feel so much compassion and love for moms. And so I want this to be a place where moms in the trenches can feel loved and supported in this most noble job of raising children. Number 3 reason to pop over to my website at the end of this is if you'd like to know about the presentation on September 27th at 5 p.m. Mountain Time that I'm going to do with my son Palmer about helping parents and teens connect, and the teens will be there too. And if you join my email list, I'll let you know when that is open for registration. On the homepage, number 4, I have a link to a podcast that I did where I shared more about my research on preventing youth suicide. Number 5 reason to go is that you'll find a link to the article that CNN wrote about my relationship with Palmer. They did a series called The Best in Us about some positive things that came out of COVID. And they just reached out to me out of the blue because they had seen a blog and said, hey, can we interview you about your kid coming home from college? And so that's how that article started. 6, on my website, I have a load of blog posts about a wide variety of parenting challenges. And number 7 is I have a place to sign up so I can stay in touch and keep you posted about parenting events. So my last little blurb that I want to share is this, that this season does pass. I know it can be uncomfortable at times with teens in the house. It can be hard for us to show up as the grown-up when our kids' adolescent selves can bring out our adolescent selves. It's okay that we worry. That's reasonable. But I really want to share that on the other side of rough teen years, there is hope for strong, close relationships with your kids. I'm here from the other side of some big struggles with some of my kids and smaller with others of my 6 kids. And I want to share that now we're all close and connected. So after our young people individuate and become their own independent adults, they come back and can be close and appreciative and awesome to have around. There's hope. And that experience of watching my big grown-up sons walk in the door after being gone saying, "Hi, Mom," in their deep voices and wrap me in a big hug where I feel tiny, that is a version of heaven. So just keep showing up the best you can. Imperfections, humanity, and all. and let those kids know that you're interested in knowing them as their own unique selves. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Carrie. That was wonderful. So happy that you've empowered us to keep showing up and keep going at it, but pause before we ask our many questions of our teenagers after they get out of school. We heard that a lot in the chat feature. Everyone was like, "I'm going to practice the dramatic pause with all my questions and bring it in a different way." How about that?
Love it.
So we're all here to keep learning and keep growing. And you have certainly empowered us with so much information to do that and to adjust. When one of our strategies isn't working, there's a lot that we can have in our back pocket to keep trying and never give up. Raising our humans is our most important job, so we have to keep at it from a lot of different angles, right?
Indeed, for sure.
So here at Operation Parent, we're also working hard to keep at prevention in a lot of different angles. So we've got, first of all, some great questions in the queue already, so I'm excited about that. Secondly, we've got an amazing offer for everyone who is here with us on the webinar on our handbooks. And I just wanted to share that we do have two versions of our handbook. As you mentioned already greatly, we have the elementary version and the middle and high. And when you speak about when our teens are struggling, for those of you parents that have the handbook already that are with us, you can flip to that page 41 and really dig in on emotional and mental health, anxiety, depression, self-harm, the tough stuff that we might find our teens dealing with after COVID. Those things have all statistically spiked. And so if you're in the middle of a tough situation, you're not alone. And our middle and high handbook goes really deeply into those topics. The elementary starts to introduce and get us thinking as parents about the importance of mental health. And there's a lot of myths and misinformations and also warning signs for when teens or tweens might be starting to experience problems. And so from a prevention perspective, we've got lots of great information in both of these handbooks. So I'm hoping if you're with us today, you might consider taking advantage of our offer, which is 15% off a handbook today. So you can go directly to our website and order an individual handbook as a parent. And we hope that you might consider ordering and also ordering one to share with a family member or friend. We all know others directly connected with us in our family or in our community that could use this resource. So think about not only purchasing, but also have in mind who you might like to share a copy of the handbook. It's very easy and user-friendly to go to our website and order at operationparent.com/shop. It's a really tight turnaround. The offer does end on May the 5th, but you can do any quantity. There's not a limit to the quantity of handbooks that you can order. So as an individual, you can order one for yourself, or if you are, as Carrie mentioned in the beginning, with a group of Drug-Free Coalition, a school, a church, and you might like to do a bulk offer, the 15% off does still apply to a bulk offer, and that's a really good deal. We also offer free shipping. You know, we talked in the beginning that hope is at the core of our mission, and we believe strongly in our handbooks and that they can empower and instill hope by providing up-to-date information and tips for parents. And so we worked really hard to figure out a way to offer free shipping to our community, and that's recently been put in place. So please note as you're thinking about it that that is another great part of the offer here with us today. All right, so now to the Q&A section. We had someone mention that a thank you first. So it's not necessarily a question, but a thank you. They are a master trainer with QPR, suicide prevention training. And they mentioned that they conduct numerous trainings on suicide prevention and that they really appreciated that we were diving in to this topic today. So if you're interested in more resources and learning or a technique that can prevent suicide, QPR are the initials, standing for question, persuade, and respond or refer. But if you just Google QPR, suicide prevention, you can find some additional information on suicide prevention training. But thank you for our attendee who put that gracious comment in the question section. We've been asked for the link to the video for what do you wish your parents knew. Someone just asked if you could share that video again.
So that's, if you go to carriestutzman.com, it's right on the home page, kind of down, I don't know, half or 2/3 of the way down. There's a picture of teenage boys on it, and it's there.
Awesome. Okay, good. So someone mentions that they have an extended member of their family that was addicted to marijuana at the age of 13. They're now 40 and still living at home, not able to finish school, not connected with a lot of friends or family members. So they've shared very openly that this makes them afraid of addiction for their own children. And how can they speak with their own kids and lessen their own fear? So meaning, how can I not overlay this fear of addiction on them, but also really talk with them in a way that's proactive in terms of preventing them from utilizing marijuana?
I love that question because I think as parents, it's easy to veer away from uncomfortable conversations and things we want our kids to stay away from, except other than saying like, don't do that, you know, or wait until this time or whatever. But then it piques this interest in the kid's mind of like, ooh, if I'm not supposed to do it, it must be good, right? And so it fosters kids' curiosity. And so I like the approach of, and what I did with my boys when they were younger, I was like, you know, everything that's addictive is pleasurable in the beginning, right? Drugs, alcohol, weed, tobacco, porn, sex, all of those things have an element of pleasure. And that's how they get you, right? And that's what starts the addiction. So I would just state up front, like, yeah, people do it because it feels good in the beginning, and then it becomes a problem that can like hijack their brain. And so I think going towards the problem instead of away from it and acknowledging that piece. And then I just had my 26-year-old son home visiting yesterday. We were having this conversation about that he's 26 and a half, and now his brain is fully formed, and he's like, yeah, now I can try drugs or something like that. Because I used to always say to my kids, I'd be like, try any drug you want, like feel free, give it a try, just wait until your brain is fully formed. You know, just don't do it while your brain is forming and it's not really done for you as a male until 23 or 24. So just wait. Yeah, sure, try what you want when your brain is done. And so now he's 26 and he's like, yeah, like now I don't want to, you know, and he knows better. So that also felt like sort of a paradoxical approach of, I'm not saying never do it. I'm just saying protect your brain until it's done forming. And by then they have, you know, they're less likely to. So not everyone may agree with that approach, but that was how I like to go towards it instead of away from it.
Yeah, the brain development part is so significant, and it's so great that now we know how long the brain is still developing. Like, we didn't always speak about it still forming through 26. We used to think much younger that it was fully formed. So
yeah, and we want our kids to be the ones that are most interested in protecting their brains, right? From injury, from drugs, from addiction, all that sort of stuff. And so that's, yeah, So the more we can get them invested in taking care of their brain.
Yes, it's powerful. Their own brains and the brains of their tribe of friends as well. They can make a
Yeah,
huge difference.
right.
Wonderful. So how about your thoughts? These are two kind of specific questions. So feel free to let me know if these are okay or if we should ask for some additional information or get back with these two families individually. So one family has a very anxious sixth grade middle schooler who hates his school. He definitely wants to switch to a school, but a different school. But the parents are concerned about it's less challenging academically there. How can we best listen to him, but also maneuver through this big decision for our family? He really sounded very, very unhappy at the original school.
Such a hard dilemma, and it's not an uncommon one about, do we move our kid because they're unhappy in a certain school? And sometimes that's a good idea. And sometimes, that quote applies of wherever you go, there you are. That can happen. So there can be the same unhealthy dynamics with other kids and that sort of stuff. And so I like this model. It can be called emotional house cleaning or flow of feelings, where we can ask our kid to really express all their emotions, right? So if a kid is anxious, it means that he's most likely, his default emotion that he feels and shares is fear. And so then his brain can get stuck on that. This is true for all of us, right? We all do this with our different defaults. One is anger, one is sadness, one is fear, and one is guilt or regret. So if this is a kid who would talk, how cool would it be to just say, tell me everything you're mad about your school situation. And we parents, we don't say a word. It's not a conversation. It's a download of emotion. We just listen, we're engaged, we have eye contact, all that kind of stuff. We say, tell me everything you're mad about, everything you're sad about, everything you're scared about, and everything you feel guilt or regret about. And then we do the opposite. When it comes to your school situation, what are you happy about, grateful for? What do you feel secure about? Like, what do you trust yourself? How do you trust yourself? It's the opposite of fear. And what are you proud of yourself for? And then we just listen, and then we just reflect back, not with answers or advice or anything. We just say, like, thank you for sharing that. Like when you shared, I felt so sad about da da da, and oh, I felt so happy when I heard you say this, that, or the other. And then we say what the gift was. Like, that was a gift that you shared with me. And if we can get a kid to share from that fuller place of all 8 emotions, because chances are, if we look for it, we all have all 8 of those emotions about different challenges. And that can be a place to help sort out a little bit more what to do about the school decision and really let the kid feel heard at a deep level. And if somebody, I know I went through that fast and it's a bunch of steps. If you want to email me, I'll send you a little 3x5 card, front and back, about what to say and like what the response can be to really hear that kid. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, that's so powerful. We can use that in so many different scenarios, like so many places, because there's a lot of emotion, and I think a heightened level of emotion still coming out of COVID. It feels like that way in our house, I'll say.
Indeed.
Yes. So here's another example of a family just double checking their strategy. Their daughter had snuck out of a window on vacation recently in an unfamiliar town to meet up with some other friends. And so it's sort of getting your thoughts on consequence checking. So what they did was they took the phone away and grounded her, and then gave her an additional list of chores to do But would you have suggested other consequences, and also maybe what could be just the follow-up in working, continuing the relationship and rebuilding the trust, and what might you suggest?
Well, I love this one because this is one where it makes so much sense that a kid does that and that they have no idea how dangerous that is, right? Like that could be a life-changing action. And so, of course, parents want to do something. I think that one of the most important pieces is to sure, do some of those things. Like I'm not always sure that grounding a grumpy teenager and having them be in the house more helps a lot or teaches us a whole lot, but sometimes we don't know what else to do. I think however the consequence gets put together, a piece that I would add is teaching, and teaching what can be the ramifications of this. And they don't always want to hear it from us. So something I did with Palmer, that coach kid who was so hard to raise, when I caught him drinking, I took away a privilege. I think I took his phone and I said, I'm happy to give you your phone back when you've completed this task. And I gave him his task in writing because he hated me so much that to even try and say it by words, it would have blown up and he would have been like, you didn't say that, you didn't say this. It just would have been a nightmare. So I typed it up. I said, I love you so much. I want you to learn about the hazard, about youth and alcohol. And so he had to interview a law enforcement officer. So I drove him to the police department. He would have nothing of me going with him. He got out, slammed the door, walked in, asked if he could talk to a cop, and sat down and asked some questions about what that officer had learned about youth drinking and the hazards of it and the legal ramifications and what advice he would give to Palmer. And then Palmer had to write a paragraph. No, for each one, he had to write a one-page summary, size 12 font, 1-inch margins, double spaced. I was that specific because he was such a rascal that he would have done it in like size 80 font. Then he also had to interview a medical professional. And I have a friend who's a doctor, and she talked to him for 2 hours and talked to him about what she sees in the emergency room with kids who've been drinking and how dangerous it can be. And she had him name his goals, and she really connected with him. And she shared the medical stuff. And so she was willing to spend time and take him on. And to this day, she is coming to his wedding this summer because forever since then, he's had this special bond with this doctor who's my friend who cared and gave him information. And then the third person that he had to talk to was a mental health professional. And so he, and I listed a handful that he could choose from to make it easier for him. And so we were at an event, and it was actually my second wedding, and he spent part of the reception talking to a therapist who was there, who's my friend, who specializes in addictions. And he asked those same questions, like, what are the hazards? What have you learned? And what advice would you have for me? And then he wrote it all up. And one of the things I like about I'm happy to give you your phone back as soon as you've done these tasks, then there is no battle. Because if he's like, Mom, I need my phone, I'm like, I will be so happy to give you that phone as soon as you do your tasks. Yes, the answer is I'm ready to give you your phone. You just complete that task and I'm on board. So I think that strategy can be used for all sorts of things. For sneaking out, definitely a law enforcement officer would have something to say about that. Someone in the medical field would be, maybe in an emergency room. I've had my kids call their pediatrician. And the pediatrician has taken time to talk to these kids about not wearing helmets and other reckless things that they were doing. So I think it's not too hard to find other adults who are part of the community, who are happy to be part of teaching the youth how to be safe. Mental health professional, law enforcement officer, and maybe that's enough. Maybe they come up with one other person this kid can learn from.
I love that idea, and you're sharing a really neat strategy. The drug-free coalitions that are with us today also have all three of those areas represented in their sector circles. So there may be some sort of neat follow-up program idea that we could do to utilize what you're suggesting there. But as an individual parent, that's a wonderful idea too. And I love what you say about, yes, I'm ready to give you your phone back. Like I want to. So let's get this done so we can work together and you know, move along. So I love that so much. So are we ready to give away 3 copies of your book?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So we had in mind that it would be for 3 newer parents, so younger parents or you've just had children, because it's beautifully written, wonderful ideas for self-care and loving yourself as a new mom. So if you happen to be a new mom or you happen to have a new mom in your family, we're going to take the first 3 entries in the question section that have provided their full name, email, as well as mailing address. And then we'll get them those addresses to Carrie, and we'll get 3 books in the mail to folks that are with us. We appreciate you all being with us for a little bit over the time. So you, everyone who's here and interested in that book, we look forward to looking in the question section and picking the winners there.
Awesome.
All right, let me just double check that we've got a few coming in. We've had great interaction in the question section today. Carrie, you've framed that up nicely for us.
Thanks. Thanks for the people who interact. It's fun to hear from people.
Okay, yes, we've got addresses in the question section. And with that, we want to thank everybody so much. We know that your time is mega valuable, and for you to take it and spend it with us this afternoon learning, we're grateful, so grateful. And Carrie, we're so thankful for your time and talent and the presentation that you worked hard to put together for us. So we hope everybody has a wonderful afternoon. And I've heard in the chat or the question section about beautiful days everywhere, all over the United States. We've got just about every state represented today, as well as a few international folks with us. So wherever you are, whatever time it is there, I hope that you have a lovely afternoon. And Carrie, you take care and we'll be in touch.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye-bye.